We are hopeless, selfish creatures, and we need a savior.
She's a total heathen.
All right, we're doing a podcast.
Hey everyone, it is us, your Two NoMos. I'm Kate. This is Erica from an ExMo
And an Evermo walk into a bar.
Where are we again today, Erica?
We are at Land of 1,000 Hills Coffee. We love it here so much. It's under new ownership in Daybreak, and it's just such like a warm, lovely feeling in here. Every time we come in, we're like, this is the highlight of our week.
I know, they spoil us rotten.
Amber made this amazing charcuterie and just like serves it with love, and it just feels so amazing. So if you're local and you're in the area, definitely come by. We love it so much. We would just spend all of our time here if we could. It's so
and they
nice.
recently got their liquor license.
Yes.
So cheers
to that. So what are we talking about today?
Last week we talked about the first part of the temple. Well, the first several parts of the temple. We talked a little bit about baptism for the dead and the initiatory and the endowment. We could have had complete episodes on each of those individually. Today we're going to talk about the fourth component of the temple, which is the ceilings. Not
the things that are up there.
Right. The ceilings that we're talking about are when a man and a woman, it's got to be a man
Love
and a
each
woman.
other very, very much.
Yeah. Man and woman love each other very, very much. And they need to be sealed in the temple for time and all eternity. This is what makes the LDS Church different from others, because in other religions,
One of the things.
Only one. But, in other weddings, they will have like till death do us part. But the LDS Church is like, no. We're sealed together for time and all eternity as one big happy family. Now, before we go into this, I just want to do another just content warning for those of you who are members of the church. Things that we're going to say are just not faith promoting whatsoever. And a lot of people think of the temple ceremonies as incredibly sacred. If this sounds like something you don't want to listen to, don't listen to it. So just letting you know right there, we are going to be quite irreverent.
As we usually are. If you've seen any of our episodes, you should know by now to tune out. But if you somehow stumbled upon us by accident and you're like, oh, I want to check this out. If you're deep in the church, just do yourself a favor and don't.
Yeah, pretty much. So just to talk a little bit about these sealings, it's indoctrinated from the time you're just little. In primary, I've sung some of these fun little primary songs to you. One of those that we sing when we're little is families can be together forever. You want to be with your family for eternity. There are a lot of issues with this doctrine that I really don't love.
Well, and I can tell you, there are plenty of my family members that I definitely don't want to be around forever. Like, that would be a disincentive for me. I'd be like,
right.
No, thank you. I'm out of here.
Right. And I think if we were all honest with ourselves, I think everyone would say that about some family members or whatever. But they dangle that carrot of hope, like everyone's going to change in the afterlife and it's going to be so much better.
This is one of the things that is interesting to me, and I had heard that before. There was a woman that I was working with that I didn't think that she was Mormon. She was from Dominican Republic, and I was like, she told me that she came to it later, and I said, how did that happen? And she said, well, the missionaries came to my door, and I was like, oh, what did they say to you? And she said, they knocked on my door and they said, how would you like to spend eternity with your family? And she said, I just thought that sounded so good. So, I signed up, and I was like, so if Muslims showed up at your door and said the same thing, like, how do you differentiate in your brain? And that's what I wanted to say to her. Like, if Muslims showed up at your door, any other religion said, how would you like to spend eternity? Here we have the answer. You would have said yes. Like, that is what is sort of like mind-boggling to me.
And that is the product that they're selling. The church is selling this product where you can be with your family forever. Of course, there's no evidence to support that claim at all. It's just make believe. And we just, and we feel like we have the authority to make that happen. It's the priesthood authority that was given to Joseph Smith, like John the Baptist and Peter, James, and John and whatever. Like, he has this priesthood authority that you need to seal your family forever. But as we mentioned, problematic because not everybody wants to be sealed with their family forever. Think about those couples that are there's an abusive partner. Do you really want to be sealed to your abusive partner forever? How about your parents are abusive. Do you want to be sealed with them forever? No. But
is there any getting out of it? Like, let's say you're sealed with, you have abusive parents, you're sealed. Is there any undoing? Can you go to the celestial kingdom? She schooled me on the. Need to have that in there.
Right.
If I'm going to be a good Mormon. But is there any way to, like, can you go to Heavenly Father and say, you know what, they suck. Can you, like, unseal me?
You can be unsealed if you are a heathen. If you break the commandments,
yes.
then you don't get to be with your family
I'm
forever.
down. I'm good. I'm taken care of. And I love a lot of my family. There's lots of my family that I would not mind being sealed to, although that word is kind of a little bit creepy.
Right.
But yes. So, but
Right.
anyway, but I'm heathen enough. So I think
But they're going to give it with a big plea of shame. But you can't be with your family because of you. Also, your parents are going to be up at night worrying about how their family is not going to be together forever in the eternities because they weren't good enough parents. Or you're just too much of a rebel and you're a worthless piece of shit. Why can't you get your act together and get this family up to the celestial kingdom? Damn it. Damn it.
Well, and that is another part of the cult tactic is when someone leaves the herd, when there is someone that decides not to be a part of it, is that is something that's meant to bring the person back. So have all the family deploy and react and respond to get this person who has left the fold to bring them back in and shame them and guilt trip them into coming back in. And I know that has been the case for several people that we know, and that is a real stinker and a real manipulation tactic. And one of the things that makes me very angry.
Yeah. And me too. While I was preparing for this episode, I was just seeing a lot of unpleasant feelings. It's nice to have this outlet together. Thanks so much.
Let it out.
A little bit of laughter. But a lot of this too, about this sealing, all of the problematic, like a lot of people don't want to be with their family for eternity, and don't even get me started on polygamy, because that is an eternal principle, which we'll touch on later on. But I also been thinking, like, what kind of loving God says some of my kids are going to be happy in the eternities, but not everybody. Because
you have to pay your tithing.
You got to pay your tithing.
Eternity. God needs money right now.
Right.
And a lot of it.
Right. Absolutely. And it's also super contradictory of what Jesus taught. Because there was this part in the Bible, in the New Testament, where these Sadducees came to him and they're like, well, there's this woman and her husband dies. And so by law, like the next brother is supposed to take her. But let's suppose like all 7 brothers die and the woman has been married to all of them. And then she dies at last. Who's he going to be with, or who's she going to be with in the eternities? Jesus says, and I quote, "For in the resurrection, they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are as the angels of God in heaven." Jesus is like, there's no marriage in heaven.
Everyone's just floating around, being happy, maybe in a big orgy.
Or
who knows?
Being an angelic orgy.
That sounds delightful.
Doesn't it just?
If I ever throw an orgy party, it's going to be an angelic orgy. I'm just saying right now. Or if I start a band, I'm going to call it Angelic.
That's a great band name right there.
I would listen to that music.
Yeah, but as we know, Joseph Smith is like, no, I'm above the law.
Of course.
I get to make my own rules, and that whole thing, whatever. So in 1843, he decides that he's going to get this revelation from God. And then it was publicly announced in Salt Lake City, but it was not accepted by church members until 1880, almost 40 years later. The church members like, okay, we'll accept this as doctrine. In this section, or it's like a chapter in the Doctrine and Covenants, the controversy is that he talks about how this principle of eternal marriage, the everlasting covenant, the new and everlasting covenant, men can become gods. You've heard this before, yeah?
Yeah, I've heard like versions of this, and then people have said, no, that's not true, or yes, it is. Gods, and you get a planet. Right?
Yeah,
Or
something like that, right? Because I'll read this just in that section 132. He talks about like the new and everlasting covenant of man married this wife, yada yada, and down at the bottom, you got to be good, don't commit murder, be a good boy. Then shall they be gods, because they have no end. Therefore, they will be from everlasting to everlasting, because they continue, and they shall be above all. Then And then they shall be gods because they have all power, and the angels are subject to them. So if you're not sealed in heaven, you become an angel, and then you are an eternal servant to these gods who were worthy enough to be sealed in heaven forever.
So you better get married and have lots of babies
Hell
if you
yeah.
want to be a god. And women, of course, can be gods too, right?
Well, they get to pop out all of the babies. Is what it is.
Sounds awesome.
Eternal
baby making.
Eternal baby making is really what it was.
Eternal incubator. That's going to be the name of my next band.
I think it's fantastic. But so the part of the controversy in that 132 was men are going to become gods, not women. Men are going to become gods. And if you don't, you're going to be an angel that will serve the gods.
So if you're every man that is married on the planet and has a wife that is popping out babies, they're all going up there and they're going to be gods?
Yeah, sure. But only if they are married in the temple under the proper priesthood authority. Then they can become gods. They can make their wives servants to them forever. And then that's the next part of it is in 132, he talks about polygamy. He's like, guess what? In the Bible, the prophets of old, they totally practiced polygamy back then. So
let's bring it back, baby.
Bring it back, baby. And so that's why it took 40 years for the church to finally accept, because they're like, that's fucking wrong.
We don't do this anymore.
Nobody wants to have, I don't know a single woman who's like, oh, I can't wait to have all these sister wives.
Well, of course, it's for men. It's a way for men to basically have sanctioned cheating and have multiple partners while still being married and holding their covenants or whatever.
Right.
And what's interesting to me is, so I did like a short video on TikTok about this. When I moved here, the thing that everyone knows about Mormons, there's a couple things. Everyone knows about the missionaries going door to door. And everyone knows about polygamy. And when I was moving here, all of my friends were joking, are you going to get sister wives? Is Murph, that's my husband, is he going to get more wives? And it was like a big joke. Then I got here, and where I was working, occasionally it would come up, polygamy, as it would do in Utah. For various reasons I won't get into now, but the Mormons there were all like, they shut it, like, the eyes got like wide like saucers. No. And they would shut it down, get very uncomfortable. We don't do that anymore. We don't practice that. The church has disavowed that. This is not something that we practice. They've removed that from their doctrine. I found out recently, someone that we know and who will maybe have on the show eventually was being groomed to be a sister wife by her mother. Her mother was not a sister wife and did not practice polygamy, but she said to her, it is the true way. It is the way of the Lord. And when the earth is right again, we're bringing this back because this is the correct practice. So, and that is, I think, like a bunch of Mormons will respond and say, or especially ExMormons will say, yes, that is absolutely the case. And others will say, no, absolutely not. But then when you look to what's the perfect thing in Mormon ideology, it's the celestial kingdom. And in the celestial kingdom, they are 100% practicing polygamy. It's imaginary, of course, but in their ideal place, the celestial kingdom, polygamy is happening. Do you want to speak to why with the sealings and how that works with divorce or death with a woman and a man?
Yeah. Well, we know that two of the quorum of the 15, the prophet Russell Nelson is sealed to two women. His wife passed away. She was a good woman, but he remarried and is sealed to his new wife. So he's sealed to both. And so when he dies, they get to fight over who gets to be with cute little Rusty.
Yeah. No, they both do, right? They're sister wives in heaven, and they're going to link arms and sing hymns on a cloud and fuck this guy to eternity.
Because not the prophet. Stop it. But him and also the next prophet, Dallin Oaks, who is going to be the prophet when Russell Nelson dies. He's going to be the next prophet. Same thing. He is sealed to two women. Because his wife died, and now so they're going to be sister wives in heaven. Hooray.
But if a woman and a man, let's start with divorce. So a woman and a man are married, they get divorced. So when she wants to remarry,
Yeah. I'm an expert on this. I've gone through it twice. So let me tell you a little bit about my experience. I married a man who was married and divorced. My first husband had been married before. And when we wanted to get married, in the temple, we needed permission from the first presidency because he had already been sealed to this woman. And so we got permission and we were sealed in the temple.
So you're sealed to this first wife too.
That's the thing. Well, I don't know that I'm sealed to her, but I knew that both of us were sealed to him.
And when you go to the celestial kingdom, you're all sealed together in a polygamous relationship.
Yeah. And that was really kind
lucky
of
guy.
Lucky guy, not lucky women. But I remember getting married to him. And the thing was, they were still married. They were still sealed together. Even though she was getting remarried, she had left the church. But you'd always been taught like, oh, well, in the next life, you'll have an opportunity to accept the gospel again. And then you can like come back and those covenants are going to be, they're still intact. So marrying my first husband, who had been married before, I'm like, I guess I better learn how to be a sister wife to this woman. And then first husband and I divorced. And then I met second husband. He had been married before. And his wife was not remarried. And same thing. I was like, well, I guess I have a new sister wife that I need to get familiar with. And so I spent this time thinking that I needed to befriend her to get a head start for what it would be like when we were sister wives in heaven. Because I didn't think she would ever marry again. Or if she did, she would be sealed to someone else. And it was just a major mindfuck, knowing that this husband, neither of my husbands were mine. Neither of my husbands belonged to me. They belonged to someone else.
Because they were sealed to someone else first.
Uh-huh.
And the crazy thing about it, which is what you told me and I learned, is so when a man remarries, he doesn't need to get permission. He doesn't need to unseal himself. He can keep the first wife.
Yes.
He doesn't have to do anything. He can get divorced, marry a new woman, whatever. It's fine. She's sealed then to the other wife as well. But men, they can't be polygamous in heaven with each other. So if a woman is married, it gets divorced and wants to remarry, she has to get unsealed. So and what's crazy about that I just learned recently, or like maybe made the connection, is so like if you're a man and you're married and your wife dies, whatever, it's fine. You can marry again, be sealed. That's fine, because you can be sealed to 150 women in heaven.
Sure.
If you're a woman and your husband dies and you've been sealed to him, you're going to have a really, really hard time finding another partner because you cannot be sealed in the temple. You are meant to be celibate for the rest of your life or find someone outside of the church.
Well, you don't have to be celibate, because I did. My bishop growing up had a wife who passed from cancer. It was terrible. And then he married another woman in the ward later on.
He could, but could she have?
Her husband had passed. Oh. And so she could get married to this bishop, but they could not be sealed. They could not be sealed.
Well, and that's the thing. A lot of men in the church who are looking to, if they haven't been married before, especially, they need to do what they can to get into heaven. And you have to, or it's just for the celestial kingdom. So you have to be sealed and do all the things to go become a god and get your planet and all the stuff. So a lot of men, if they can't be sealed to a woman, won't marry her. Some will. So I guess you can, there are like loopholes to be able to get married and do the dirty. But, but if you want to be sealed and assure your place in the celestial kingdom, you need to be with a woman who has never been married before.
Pretty much.
She can't unseal.
Pretty
once
much.
She's dead. You're sealed. That's it.
Yeah. And so when I was divorced the first time, I had to get permission from the church to get this sealing cancellation and permission from my ex-husband.
To get married again.
To get sealed again.
And imagine how well that would go if, instead of being a nice guy, I know him and he's a nice guy. If he were a total dick and was like, nope, too bad for you. I'm going to get married whenever I want again. And I refuse to unseal from you. So fuck you.
Pretty much. So it's a lose-lose-lose situation, which is why the church is like, we just don't want you to get divorced. Stay with your abusive partner. Just stay with them. You make it work. It's all your fault. White knuckle your way to the celestial kingdom, damn it, because you're going to make it one day if you just hold on to these covenants. Oh, did I also tell you that they also taught us like this little triangle in church, that there was God at the top and the husband and the wife. And I was always taught that two individuals in any marriage, because it's a freedom.
They're all about the threesome. It is the dirtiest religion. I mean, once you're married, jump humping, soaking. Well, that's before you're married, but and you're in a threesome with Jesus. He's a kinky motherfucker.
Oh my God.
That Jesus guy.
No, I guess it's God the Father or something. But I was always
this is the kinky motherfucker.
But as for this threesome, I was always told, like, any two people can make a marriage work as long as one of them is God. So I was always like, okay, my husband is disinterested or whatever right now, going through his own thing, but God and I, we're going to make this marriage work. I always felt like it was my responsibility to make the marriage work, because it didn't matter what my husband wanted or what he thought or anything, but as long as I was there with God, miracles would happen. Oof. Yeah. So that was fun.
I'm sure that didn't fuck you up at all.
No, that's why I'm still single too.
You are redefining yourself and discovering yourself.
I know. So we can talk also about what a sealing looks like if it were picturesque. You know, you're young teens, you're both undefiled, both virgins, and you get married before you even know each other, you know yourself, and you're excited to go to the temple. And here's what that looks like. You go through the interview process. You, of course, have to be deemed worthy by other men, the bishop and the stake president. Like, you're ready to get married, right? Yay, keep your covenants. You can take a marriage prep class or a temple prep class, and then you'll go to the temple. Oftentimes, the girl has never been to the temple before, but the man has, because he's gone on a mission. Because he's gone on a mission. He's been prepared. And so in this temple, she'll go through the endowment ceremony, which we talked about last week, the initiatory, the endowment. And then the husband, and then they will go to the celestial room where she will whisper her secret name to him, but he doesn't whisper his secret name to her, because in the eternities, in heaven, I guess, he will be calling her by this new secret name.
But she can't ever call him?
No. Why would she do that?
She wouldn't need to come anyway.
She doesn't have the penis, remember?
You need a penis for that, for sure. Right. To be able to call a name. I know I've never called anyone because no penis. It's really hard to communicate or get anyone's attention.
It's really hard.
You need a penis for that.
Right. Anyhow, so once they go into the temple, then they have their wedding day, which you and Murph have been married. I've seen your pictures. It looked like one of the most beautiful experiences, right?
Yes, we had like the most amazing wedding, and it was it was inexpensive. A lot of times when people have an amazing wedding, it's like $150,000, whatever. We did not spend a ton of money. We got married at at Wien's, which is a winery in Temecula. Super beautiful. We had lots of contributions from our family. Like we had a band that I was friends with play. We had amazing food, amazing drink. My mom is an artist. She made the seating chart. I made the cake. It was of cheese because my husband is from Wisconsin and I don't like sweets. So we had a cake of cheese.
Yeah.
We had just danced. We had a pretty short ceremony when my friends contributed to that. One of them read a poem. It was lovely. And then we drank and danced and ate.
You mean you drank alcohol, right?
Yeah. Yep. And I cannot imagine going to a wedding that is without that. And I've heard like some stories, like different, like non-Mormons who've been to Mormon weddings who are like,
mm-hmm.
And then I've heard a little bit from Mormons, although they're more tight-lipped. So I've heard a little bit from like ex-Mormons, but it's, I imagine nothing like any of that.
Oh no. Just the way.
So glad I did not have a Mormon wedding.
Yeah, what happened? I've had two Mormon weddings in the temple, both of them. And what I did, and the husbands and I, we show up, we get to the temple. There is a special bride's room for the bride. And she goes in, and the matrons of the temple treat her just so kind and wonderful. And this is your special day. You can have your mom in there to make sure you're looking.
And you had wine, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I had this room, but it had like 16 bottles of wine in it.
No. It was, and depending on where you get married, it could be like, take a number, get out. Like at the Salt Lake Temple, a lot of people want to get married at Salt Lake Temple because
It's like a conveyor belt
it
of
is.
brides.
It's a conveyor,
Pew,
like,
pew.
go. Come on. We got our next bride coming. Fortunately, I didn't get married in any of those situations.
Oh,
it was
good.
a
It was
nicer,
just you?
calmer down. Maybe there were other brides, but we were so,
Which in and of itself, it's like, if there were other brides there, my dad would be like, get the fuck out. It's my day. Like, what?
no, it was
My special day.
No,
Damn
we
it.
have to share our special day. And then we go upstairs and to a sealing room. And of course, anyone who is going to be there in attendance has to be card carrying members of the church. They pay their 10%. They're only allowed to be, and then they're in their Sunday best, but we're in the temple. So we just whisper. It's not like, oh my gosh, it's so good to see you. No, it's like, hey, Mom, hey, Dad.
Wait,
So good to see you.
and go back for a second, because anyone in Utah knows this, but anyone outside and who has never had a touch point with Mormons does not know. And this is one of the really gross things. If you are Mormon and you're getting sealed in the temple, anyone who is either not Mormon or who is Mormon and doesn't have a temple recommend is
Or
not
if they're
worthy
children,
enough.
children can't go in the temple either because they're not old enough.
So wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, you're not allowed to go into the sealing ceremony if you're a child or if you're not a member of the church as an adult. So what happens?
So they can't go.
Yeah. So what'll often happen is the children are downstairs in like a waiting room, because the temple does have like a waiting area down on the main floor. So if you are not a member of the church, or if you are not worthy to go to the ceremony, you're just on babysitting duty is what you get. Because
It's like you have to sit at the kids' table.
yeah, pretty much, because you haven't paid your dues.
Which is insane. So that means if you are a member of the church and your sister has left or your mom is not, they cannot attend your wedding, which is wild and so shitty. And again, it's another way for the church to make family members sort of deploy and pull their family members in. And none of your friends can attend if they're not members. It's a way of cloistering. It's another cult tactic. It's
It
a way
absolutely
of,
is. It's us versus them.
Yeah, yeah, and being very insular and making sure only certain people can do certain things. And that's a way to pull people into the group. Because of course you want to attend your daughter's wedding or, whatever, anybody's wedding, your friends, but you cannot do it unless you're a literal card carrying member of the church.
Right.
Not culty at all.
Fortunately, things have changed in the last several years. I know of people who, when they get married, choose to have like a ring ceremony or something very civil beforehand, so that their non-member family members and friends can attend the ring ceremony or something like that. But more often than not, it's sucks to be you. You're not a worthy member of the church. You can come to the reception, which we'll talk about as soon as I talk about the temple. So you get inside this room upstairs in the temple. It's a sealing room, and it's got 2 mirrors on either side, because at some point, now I look at it that way. Yeah, it could be totally kinky. But the 2 mirrors on the side, because at some point in time, the sealer is going to ask you to stand up and look in the mirrors, because they go on for eternity. And that's a visual representation of what this ceremony is going to be about. You're there. There's a sealer, an old man. Most often you don't know him. And then you have to have 2 witnesses, like male witnesses, that will sit up at the front, and they will watch this to make sure that it happened. And there's an altar in the middle. So you're dressed in all of those creepy clothes from the endowment ceremony, with the robes and the green apron, the baker's hat, the veil, the sashes, all of this. You're not feeling beautiful. This is your wedding day, and you look like a
weirdo.
Weirdo is what you do. And it's got to be temple worthy. Like the dress has to come down to your wrists. You can't show any cleavage or anything. It's just like,
Because boobs are filthy.
boobs are filthy. Absolutely. But you're
Dirty pillows.
but you're dressed in this weird culty stuff that you wore in the temple ceremony. So you walk in as a bride. You're not feeling beautiful on your wedding day. You don't. You just look like everybody else, and everyone's looking at you. And again, it's in the temple, so you can't be excited at all. It's all just like, hush, whisper. So good to see you. So good to see you. Congratulations. The man and the woman will kneel at the altar facing one another, and they will be in the patriarchal grip, your favorite grip of all. No, I'm not going to put you through that again. You've already been traumatized enough
so
as a
gross, you
non-member.
guys. It's disgusting. It's very creepy. It's like scissoring with your hands.
Yeah, it's creepy. So the sealer will give this memorized speech. A lot of it's from like the scriptures, that the section 132, which we just talked about. And hooray, do you take each other? Yes. Do you take each other? Yes. Do you commit to like be amazing? So rather than say I do, you say yes. And then he's like, all right, by the power of the priesthood, you are now sealed for time and all eternity, yada yada. And then nobody can applaud because you're in the temple. Like, it's silent. They're just like, everybody wants to, but they keep it all bottled up. And then oftentimes the sealer will drone on and on and on about God and Jesus and the importance of temple service and paying your tithing and being good members of the church. It's just like another chance to indoctrinate you and everybody who's there in attendance.
And for the low, low price of 10% of your income.
Then
Basically an infomercial
right
for Mormonism.
And then you stand up and then the couple will like shake hands of people who came to watch. So excited. And of course you're all whispering. Oh, whisper, whisper, whisper. Can you imagine?
No. And I will say one of the things that I loved about finally having a wedding, I got married. I wasn't a young bride. Was being able to make all the decisions about everything. And one of the things that happened in my wedding, and this is totally different and really, we did like a rehearsal. It was outside, so lovely. And our friend married us. And, it was a good friend of both of us who we had met in Alaska, and we were doing the rehearsal. Our wedding coordinator said, okay, after you walk down the aisle and, you get to the front, he's going to say to you, who gives this woman to? And I looked at him and I was like, and he saw my face and he was like, no, I'm not going to do that. And I was like, thank you. I don't want that. And she was like, our wedding coordinator was like, oh, okay. Well, you can do something else. And I was like, I was with my dad because I am very close with my dad. And I was like, I'll give you a little kiss on the cheek. You can give me a kiss. Is that cool? And that was fine. But I loved being able to like make all the decisions about the music, what was said. We didn't do the garter thing because I hate that. I did not toss my bouquet because I think that's fucking stupid. And I hate the symbolism. And I didn't have a veil because I hate the symbolism of that. I had an off-white dress because I'm a dirty girl.
She is a dirty girl.
Should have walked down the aisle in like flaming red. But it was nice to make all of the decisions and like have it be of us and what we wanted and who we were. And it sounds like when you get married in the church, it's none of you that is a part of it, which is what the church, I think, aims to do. Is everything is about the church and nothing is about you. Even your wedding day isn't about you.
And that's not entirely true, because after the ceremony, you get changed, you go outside, you get pictures by the temple with your family, and then you can go have a reception. A wedding reception is separate.
And everyone
from the
gets crazy, right?
Yeah, it's so crazy because oftentimes,
but it's dirty soda, so
Dirty
yeah, it's
soda.
wild, and it's not that dirty.
But a lot. I can't tell you how many wedding receptions I've been to in a church cultural hall. So in the church, you've never been inside of one, have you?
In a church?
In a church building.
No.
Yeah. They're creepy from the outside, but there will be a cultural hall inside, and it's a place where the cultural activities take place. A lot of times the young men will play basketball there. So they will hold a reception free of charge in this cultural hall with like basketball hoops up on either side. They're trying to decorate it. I mean, and they'll
hang flowers.
Yes. Yeah. You'll hire wedding planners, or maybe if you want to keep cheap, because Mormons are notoriously cheap about whatever they do, they will.
Again, because the Mormon church has no money. They're
no money.
very, very
no,
poor.
none.
Nothing to spend on.
We can't spend it on our wedding because we've already given it to the church in tithing donations and fast offerings. So, there will have a reception oftentimes in the church cultural hall. Or, I mean, there's no rule on where you have your reception. So some people will pay for a really nice location and go have a reception there. I did with my first husband. We had a little wedding reception location in Lehigh that we went to. It was lovely. And it was designed for that sort of thing. Second husband and I did our reception at a nicer looking church. It was like from the early 1900s. And just had a nicer feel, nicer look to it.
Do you have pictures?
I do. We'll have to look at our pictures.
We're gonna have to share those sometime. That'll be a trying moment for both of us, maybe.
More trying for me, I think.
I've seen some, I guess, like online when people post them, usually in front of the temple, but like, so that will be interesting.
I'll share that with you. More often than not, with these receptions, they will be in a reception hall where you just stand and shake hands with people who come to see you.
That's what I've heard. I did hear that. You
stand and shake hands because it's your mom. I mean, this is probably not unique to your Mormonism because mom's invited her cousins and her best friends and like people you're shaking hands with. I have no idea who the hell you are, but thanks for the money and the wedding gift. I appreciate that. But yeah, my first wedding, all we did was we stood in line for like 2.5 hours or so.
Did you get to dance at all?
No. I didn't get to dance at all on my first wedding. My second one I did. The second one I did.
Do they do like usually there's like the first dance as a couple, and then there's like the father-daughter, mother-son dance, which is so like super sweet.
And that depends on the couple who decides what they decide what they want to do. The church does not mandate the wedding reception has to look like this. It's just culturally evolved to just stand in the fucking wedding reception line and shake hands with your mother's second cousin's husband or whatever.
I did hear that from someone that I worked with who came into work and they were like, you're going to want to hear this. I went to a Mormon wedding over the weekend and it was wild and not that kind of wild. She was like, yeah, we just like, we walked in and they were there and the whole like reception consisted of walking up to these people and shaking their hands. And then everyone stood around. Obviously there's no alcohol. Yeah. I don't even know if there was food. If there was, it was like, sort of like crappy, whatever.
Or a little cup of mints. They would give like a little cup of mints and maybe some punch.
Celebrate! And she said it was like they were there for like 20 minutes and then they were like, well, hi. Like,
right.
And people were coming in and out and like circulating, but just wow. Like,
well, you have to accommodate the big Mormon families is what you're doing.
Of course, because everyone has to have lots of babies.
Mm-hmm. So they are, I have been to some fun Mormon wedding receptions, but usually that's because of a culture. Like if someone is Hispanic or I went to one from someone from Haiti, they will bring their culture into this wedding reception and they'll have fun dances or, the bride will have like, guys will put money on her dress and sort of things, which is so scandalous, right? I mean,
little hussy.
I know it depends on the person. So the wedding itself, the sealing is very prescribed, but the reception, people can do whatever they want. And so that's kind of how that works. As with any of the other temple ordinances, like the baptisms for the baptism, the initiatory, the endowment, the sealing is also like you do it for yourself and then you go back and you do it for the dead.
You seal the dead?
Yes, you got to seal the dead because remember how it's not fair that your great uncle 3 times removed was not a member of the church. He can't become a god unless you seal him to his wife. And so that's why you do family history and you find out, have they been sealed? No, I'm going to go do that work for them. Exactly. And so couples will oftentimes like have a temple date, which I did with my husbands. We'd have like a date night where we would go and we would do sealings for the departed. And I thought, boy, am I doing the Lord's work.
I feel like dinner and a movie is way more fun.
I agree. And not the movie they show in the endowment. That's crazy as fuck. But at any rate, you continue to do this for the dead, just like anything. But also
just like anything, how you do for the dead. Totally normal.
They also do sealing of children to their parents. Because if you were a dirty whore before your children were born and then you converted to the church or, you can have your children sealed to you. So the only time I've ever seen children inside a temple is like during an open house, which we're going to go to at Syracuse next month. You go to an open house before it's dedicated or when the children are being sealed to their parents. You'll see these cute little babies dressed all in white. They get family pictures outside, then they go in and then they seal the babies to the parents. That's not terrifying or creepy.
Not creepy at all.
Look at your face. I love your reaction so much. This is so fun. It's also true for adoptions, which I think is gross. because there are a lot of Mormon families that will adopt people from underprivileged countries. And they will take these kids, and we're just going to kind of erase this family connection you have to this past. You're ours now.
Yeah, and
we're
seal them to
sealing
them.
you for time and all eternity to us.
Yeah, it's like double robbery. It's like taking it one step further. So not only have we adopted you from these parents who, for whatever reason, can't take care of you, now fuck them. We're sealing you to us.
And look at how good we are. We're giving you not only like temporal blessings here, but we're going to give you eternal blessings as well. And your family, unfortunately, probably won't be in the celestial kingdom with us. But sucks to be you, but at least you have us. And I'm not saying this to be disparaging to people who adopt, because I think that's totally
can
noble.
Be great, but it's
also the idea of like, let's sever ties with you and your family in an extra special way by making you ours for eternity. That just makes me sick.
That's pretty gross.
Yeah. So anyway, that's pretty much the temple in a nutshell. As we've talked about baptisms for the dead, we've talked about the initiatory, the endowment, and the sealings. That's pretty much my experience in the church. And you've learned a lot, probably more than you wanted to.
It's always eye-opening. It's always an educational experience. So this all came up, and I think I mentioned this a little bit last week, but at some point in some of my exchange on social media, someone said something about when the women were told, ladies, please cover your face with your veils. And I was like, wait, what is that about? Like, that's insane. In the middle of a church ceremony, women are told to cover themselves. So I learned a little bit more about that. And then I posed a question on social media, which was, does anybody, I'm in all these Mormon groups now, which is like kind of crazy, as I never Mormon, but I said, did anyone ever have this experience of knowing anybody who got to the temple and had one of these weird experiences and just went, fuck no, and got the hell out of there? Because that is how I would have reacted as me, not like if you just thrown me into it. Obviously, if I had been indoctrinated and brainwashed by the church, I probably would have been beaten down enough to not have the wherewithal to do that. Me being myself, I'm incredibly defiant. And when something doesn't make sense to me or hits me wrong or weird, I almost always speak out about it. It's just who I am. And I'll just say like, no, this isn't cool. Like, so I posed the question on social media, to find out if anyone had had that experience. Most people said no. They did say by the time you've gotten to the church, to the temple, they've weeded out those people. So if you if they think you're going to be defiant, you've been kind of given the boot anyway. So you're never going to get in. And then
until you submit.
Until you submit. Yeah. Obedience. But there were, a bunch of people who chimed in. I mean, actually like hundreds of people that chimed in with their experiences just in response to this. So I'm going to read like some of them, and there were so many, but just a few of what some of the people said in response to this question. Did you ever see someone say, fuck no, when they got to the temple? One person said, at that point, you're very conditioned. My sister did not vocally object, but the last time she was in the temple on my endowment day, she started having a panic attack during the true order or prayer, the part where our faces are veiled. It's very sinister and disgusting. I was really confused because everyone was acting like it was the most beautiful thing, me being in the temple for the first time, yet everyone looked so silly. And here was my sister, clearly in immense pain and suffering, tears streaming down her face. It was a weird day, LOL, and the beginning of the end to my testimony. So crazy. And that actually made me tear up a little because there's in any other situation, like if I'm with you or with anybody like that I'm close to, if they start like having a reaction, there's not ever been a situation where I haven't been able to go, hey, are you okay? Not like shut up and keep your fucking head down, which is like when you're seeing someone who is reacting to a cult ceremony, who's having panic attacks and they can't even be there for that person. It's like upsetting to me. Like as I'm talking about it, it's so upsetting. I can't imagine being with someone that I love and having them melt down and being like, fuck you. We're doing a fun cult ceremony. Shut up. And being indoctrinated and have to keep that covenant or whatever.
Well, there was the time that I was a temple worker. I think I told this to you before, where I was a temple worker and I was trying really, really hard to feel the spirit, but you go and you don't feel the spirit. And then, of course it's your fault. And then you spiral. Like, I'm such a worthless piece of shit. What the hell is going on? So I had been working at the Veil or in the celestial room or something. And the temple workers had asked if any of us would be willing to stay and volunteer for a little bit longer after our shift. And I was thinking, oh, this is a great way to show the Lord how dedicated I am. Maybe he'll give me extra blessings. But I was upset. I mean, you could just looked at me. You could tell I was burdened down by this and just so sad. So there was a line of women that were going to go in to the room to work with the Veil. And I was standing in this line, and the older temple worker was like, okay, go in. And then got to me and said, not you, go home. And then let the people behind me in. No condolences, no offering of like, honey, are you okay? Because I was upset.
Because it's all about the look. It's all about the
that
sheen.
look. And
what are you showing?
And I didn't have that. And guess what that did to my mental health that day? I went home and I sobbed because I was trying to show God how committed I was.
You were kicked when you were down.
And I was kicked when I was down, and it was so miserable. So when I hear this story of people like having a mental breakdown in the temple, and people are like, sucks to be you. Why don't you go home and take care of that elsewhere? Because we don't believe in empathy.
And we don't want to show any sort of empathy or any feeling about that. And when you have told me that story before, and it reminded me of the scene in The Handmaid's Tale, when Janine, she's got the eye patch and has been totally beaten down by Gilead. And there's a moment when they're having all these people from the outside come in and they want to show everyone how great Gilead is. And Janine at this point has been super beaten down, and she's so excited to be there and be in the front, and she wants to be a part of that and have this moment in the light. And she's getting ready to walk in, and she gets pulled out of line. No, not you, because she's got an eye patch, because Gilead has fucking taken her eye. Yeah. So they're like, no, which is the same thing, because the church has beaten you down and made you feel this shitty. And then when you're like trying to be good and righteous and whatever, and like show that, the very entity that has hurt you is telling you no because you don't have the right sheen. So they pull Janine out of line and they say, no, you can't go in. And she's totally deflated by it. And one of the women, I can't remember if it's Serena Joy or what, says, we don't put the bruised apples up front. Which is, it just reminded me of that exact moment. This organization has hurt you so horribly. And then part of that shows up on you, registers somehow, and they say, you know what, we can't have that. We don't care that this has done this to you. We're supposed to be about love and Jesus and the whole thing, but fuck you. You don't have the sheen, so you better go home because you're not going to give us a good look.
Because we made a covenant to mourn with those who mourn and comfort those who stand in need of comfort.
But not really.
But only if they fit in a mold. So let's hear some more experiences.
So yeah, and there's a bunch. Maybe we'll like pepper these in other episodes because we won't have time to get through all of them today because they're wackadoodle. And as I was reading them and putting this together for the episode, like I was affected because, and you can see it. It's like, it's so incredibly shitty, like what the church does to people and how it makes them feel. So another person said, I wept when I did it for the first time, just quietly sobbing. The temple was never a good experience. I tried so hard to make it one, but the veil in particular, I felt like God didn't want to see my face because I was a woman.
Oh, God.
And clearly we're disgusting. Why would God want to see any of us? I was already struggling with the lack of visibility of women in the church. And so I was essentially before God in the temple and had to be faceless. It was a very sharp pain. Fuck you, Mormon church. Fuck you. Yeah. It just like makes me so angry, like that people, that is going to last. Like that is something that you carry around and it just makes me so mad. Another person said, I remember looking around at my mom and other relatives like, are we really doing this? I think this one is a little bit funnier if I remember. And them looking at me warmly like, yes, we are. And it made me feel not holy enough and had a red flag situation. Oh, this isn't the funny one I was thinking of. Like many have mentioned, the conditioning and dare I say grooming goes deep. So that was not the funny one that I was thinking of. There was another one, where she said she actually, I don't know if I have it right in here that I can pull up, but she said that she felt punked And she was like, this is a joke, right? Because it just felt so insane and silly to her. And she said, like, she was supposed to have her eyes closed, but she was like opening her eyes and looking around because she thought everyone was laughing at her. She was like, is this a joke?
Wow.
Yeah. She was like, this can't be, like, it can't be real, right? Like, this is insane. You're told your whole life, like, this holy experience. And it's really been like one colossal hoax, which is insane. Another person said, I wanted to bolt before it got culty. Well, more culty. My whole body screamed at me to run out of there when they offered the chance to leave. I gaslit myself into thinking that Satan was telling me. I'm going to say that again. I gaslit myself into thinking that Satan was telling me to leave, and then convinced myself that I was the problem and not ready for such a sacred thing. I got my endowments. Sometime during the year before, they got rid of the face veiling. I remember having to veil my face and feeling like God hated me because obviously this proved that I and the women around me weren't worthy enough to be face to face with him. And the fact that I had to be veiled during the creepiest fuck prayer circle that I did not want to join, but was pressured to by family.
The whole thing is pressure. The same time they changed the veil, they also changed the wording of the temple. I don't think I mentioned this last week, is when you made covenants in the temple, women would covenant to their husbands and their husbands would then covenant to God. And the church loves to send out these little surveys like, how are we doing? Because they're a business and they're not being directed and guided by God. They just want to see what can we do to make sure that our members are comfortable.
Then we make more money.
And then we make more money. At this point, I'm sure they got feedback from women in the church, like, we don't like this. And so they did change the endowment ceremony. So no longer do women have to covenant to their husbands and then to God. Now
They can covenant to
they
God?
can covenant great to God. Yeah, we go
All right.
women power, covenanting to God, like give away all of yourself to him. You don't have to do that to your husband anymore. But that was the same time they took away the veiling of the faces. Another thing that just changed recently was the temple videos. I remember watching the videos, and like I said, they were beautiful masterpieces. You could tell they invested a lot of money into these things, but they would have just these characters. It was Adam and Eve, Satan, God, Jesus, Peter, James, and John. So there are 8 people in these videos.
One woman.
And one woman, of course. But they would often change this video. I remember watching this, I'm like, that guy didn't play Peter last time, or that's a new John. Huh. What happened is I think that these people left the church. The actors would leave the church and then they had to replace them with other
And like
actors.
splice it into the same.
Yes. I saw that multiple times. And so
That is amazing.
I know. Right before I left, they had changed all of that. They scrapped it. So no longer do they do videos. They do slideshows. They do a slideshow, I mean, with the music and everything, and it's supposed to be all beautiful. But I think they do that. So rather than have to edit the whole dang video, it's so much easier to just
put in another person. Yeah. Ka-ching, ka-ching.
Because they just know that they get feedback from people that don't like this sort of thing. And then they have to change it so they can keep people coming and get that sweet 10%.
That sweet 10%.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is the one that like super hit me in the gut, and it was like just totally fucking insane. One time I was seated next to a first-time woman who was probably going on a mission and was there to get her endowment so she could go. She was very young, and glancing out my side eye periodically as the ceremony went on, I could see her anxiety rising. By the time they introduced the veil, she had a seizure. I'm 100% convinced it's because the endowment ceremony is so weird and overwhelming. Her escort wasn't picking up on her vibes at all. I was seeing her distress and knew she was upset.
Oh my God.
Which is like,
sadly, that doesn't surprise me.
totally insane.
The number.
I think that's probably like if I was brought up in the church and didn't like being who I am, but also like having to be beaten into submission, which would be a really hard thing to do with me. I think like that's how it would come out in me. I would probably just have had like a severe panic attack, or I don't have seizures, but something, or, you know, just some sort of attack. I feel like because it's so against who I am. Even just like, I mean, I came out of the womb stubborn. Yeah. That's the first thing my mom wrote in my baby book. Erica's very stubborn. So I feel like I would have reacted to all of that. And if they didn't keep me out and I somehow had slipped through and gotten in, I would have had some sort of meltdown, like my first time in the church. Cause it's not my constitution. I'm very like, no, this is not right. Like always speaking out. And I feel like if it couldn't actually come out of me, that's how it would come out.
For me, I think it's different. I was so used to being beaten down. I was so used to it. It was just another way of, it was par for the course is really what it was. Everybody would just, I felt like shit all the time anyway. So may as well just have a new opportunity to feel like shit.
It's God's love.
It's God's love. You can tell how we feel about this. This is why we do the damn podcast.
This is why we do the podcast. There's a couple more, if we have time for a few more. Yeah. These experiences are insane. And you can see, we have like pages of these. And this is just a fraction of what I wrote down from people. I didn't even ask for that. I just said, like, did anyone see anyone leave? And everyone was like, no, but let me tell you about my fucking crazy experience the first time I was in the temple or any time I was in the temple. And we can't read all of them. Maybe one day when we will put them on a website or something at some point. But the first time I went, I wanted to run. The initiatories and then the whole endowment process. Women are treated like nothing but subservient baby producers who must swear to their husbands while men swear to obey God. Fuck that.
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct. Women cover their faces. The first time I went through, I was shocked at how misogynistic it was. I had to pledge that I would follow him. I'm imagining her husband, probably.
Yeah.
And
or your future husband.
Or future husband. And he says he talks to God, but not me. I was livid at the idea that I had to be married to achieve eternal salvation. Women are so suppressed and treated like possessions, but the men can act any way they want and women just have to forgive them. Even if he abuses her, cheats on her, won't work, or is just a poor husband, the whole thing is sick. Very cultish behaviors.
Yeah. The temple is the pinnacle of cult. Like, we know that we've talked about all of the other culty tactics in the church. Like, tithing is just the bare minimum. At the temple, you go there, that's like, I'm in a fucking cult.
Well, and you're told, and like a lot of people have said this, well, like what an amazing experience it's going to be. So when you get there, your whole family's like, and there's a lot of pressure and it's like the emperor's new clothes. You've been told your whole life, this is going to be amazing. And if you don't think it's amazing, something's wrong with you. So you better and if you don't, just say you do, so that everyone thinks that you're holy and worthy, which is super culty. Like having all of that, all of your family play into it, all of the pressure, all of the need to be this thing, when in reality, it's just a fucked up mess, which is really yucky.
Absolutely.
But now you're out.
But now I'm out. But we get to go to the Syracuse open house in a few weeks, and you can see how the church is trying to use good PR to say, hey, look how popular we are. Look how wealthy we are. Cults are not this popular. Cults are not this wealthy. We can't be a
cult. No.
Cults are like, the Davidian branch. They've got like nothing. Not us. Look at our money.
So much money. And I will say the organization where I worked, one of the things that they did was the sheen, the glow, the look at us. So like where I was working, they didn't have enough money for like basic things. So it was at a university. One of the chairs told me that to graduate the people that he needed for his department, he needed to have like 60 classes for the kids. He had money for 30 classes. So he wasn't able to have the number of classes for the kids that needed to graduate on time. There was not funding for that. But at the same time, the university spent, I don't know how much money, tons of money, like re-landscaping, making like, what are those called? The, tiers or whatever. Terraces. Thank you. Like just making everything look really picture perfect on the outside. Whereas on the inside, they didn't have enough money to graduate the students that they had. There was one point where the students didn't have enough money for like basic cleaning of their instruments. And yet all this money was going to other things. They spent $200,000 on Welcome Week, which was like rah, it was great. If you have the money to do, it's lovely, but it was all for show because on the inside it was rotting and there wasn't enough money for like basic things that the university needed to be doing, which is wild. But as long as it looks good, that's all that matters.
That's really what Mormonism is. And then they turn out beige.
And then they turn out beige, which is gross.
No, if you're going to look good, at least
add some color to that shit.
Right. Oh gosh. We are going to be going to an open house in a little bit. But last week, Eric and I had a chance to go to the temple here in the Daybreak area in South Jordan, Oker Mountain Temple.
And what I'll say about that is, so you're not allowed to enter without a temple recommend.
Right.
We didn't realize how dire the consequences are for trying to enter if you don't have a temple recommend. So
everybody, now's time for a trying moment.
And now it's time for a trying moment.
So here we are at the Oker Temple.
Oker Mountain Temple.
Oker. I don't say. They always say things weird here.
Yeah, they
I don't know
do.
if you can really see the building.
There's the Oker Mountain Temple.
It's beautiful. Not really. So we did a photo shoot here just a minute ago. It was lovely. We'll be showing those pictures. But now we're going to do a quick trying moment. So I'm going to try to walk into the temple for the very first time. And then Kate is going to also walk in, but not for the first time. So here we go with that. So now I'm going to go walk up to the temple for the very first time. Okay, here I go. Wish me luck. This should be fun.
This temple, I remember when it was dedicated. This was our district's temple. I used to come to the Oker Mountain Temple all the time. I'm a little nervous about going back, but we're gonna see what happens. Okay, ready.
0 stars. Do not recommend. Yeah, that was really rough.
It was really rough.
That was way harder than I thought it would be without a temple recommend. They're serious, you guys. They're really serious. So.
And that was just the gates of the temple.
Just the gates. I can't even imagine if we made it to the door. It'd be brutal, I'm sure. So if you don't have a temple recommend, don't try this at home, kids. You saw what happened to us. Just live vicariously.
Or good enough so you can go into the waiting room while your family and friends are getting married so you can watch the children. You can do that.
That's so nice. What a condolence prize.
Anyway, thank you so much for joining us today. If you've liked any of this episode or any other episodes, we encourage you to share, to subscribe, and share your temple experience with us.
Yeah, let us know. We're at Two NoMos on Facebook. You can message us there. You can post right to our page. I believe we're always looking for guests, so send us a message. Or if you want to be unbaptized, there's lots of things that we offer. We haven't done that in a while, but we do unbaptisms if you are baptized in the Mormon Church and no longer want to be. We do it in beer. It's a lot of fun. By proxy, so you don't even have to be there, and then we'll send you a certificate. But I think the most important thing is if you like our content, if you could like it and share it is really helpful.
And if you feel like this could be beneficial for someone, please share that with them. Because for me, leaving the church, it's so helpful to know that I'm not alone.
And for me, like even having the touch point of interacting with the church for the short 3 years that I did working in Mormon Central, and then hearing from other people who were like, yeah, that was fucking traumatic, is wild. Cause I was like, I'm a little crazy, right? Like it wasn't that bad. I wasn't even in the church. I just worked there, but it was that bad. It was that wild. And when I talked about it with some other people, they were like, nope, it was fucking crazy. And we don't know how we survived it. And it was so helpful for me to hear that. Even with my little touch point. So if you know somebody who could benefit, please share with them. Or if they want to be on, let us know what their story is. We're always looking for guests.
Absolutely. And with that, we thank everyone for being here. Until next time, cheers to deconstructing Mormonism.